This is a special report from CBS 11 News.
And we want to thank everyone joining us here on this CBS DFW live stream. Ken Molestina here from the CBS 11 studios. Want to get out to J.D. Miles right now. He is standing by live for us at the Crowley Courthouse. Of course, we know, J.D., that we have arrived at the point now in the Amber Guyger trial where both sides have rested and the jury now has the case. Bring us up to speed. What was the latest that took place in that courtroom today?
Ken, as we expected, the defense rested this morning. They decided to go with the case they had. The judge had limited the testimony of their experts severely, so they decided to just rest their case. The prosecutors also decided not to call 3 rebuttal witnesses they had on standby. And so we began the morning with the charge to the jury, which was all important because Amber Guyger's been charged with murder. There are a lot of people who think this is murder and nothing less, but the judge did include the lesser included offense of manslaughter, a second-degree felony with a sentence ranging from 2 to 20 years. So the jury now has 3 options: not guilty, guilty of manslaughter, or guilty of murder. Now, after the judge read that charge to the jury, there were closing arguments by both sides. The prosecutors and the defense were able to spend an hour talking to this jury, getting them to hopefully buy their argument and convince them one way or another to decide this case in the outcome they wanted, which, of course, prosecutors believe she killed Botham Jean intentionally and deserves a murder conviction, and the defense wants her to be acquitted because they feel like this was a reasonable shooting based on her mental state at the time.
J.D., 7 days now. We have been watching this from the very beginning. It got off with some controversy before the jury was even brought in on day 1. Here we are now. They now have the case. Talk a little bit about some of the reactions that you've heard so far today. I know that there was a news conference on behalf of the Botham Jean camp that took place just a little bit ago where folks are reacting to what happens next. What's the mood like in there now?
Everyone is on pins and needles waiting for this jury to come back. You know, it's been an hour since they went out, but I'm told by some people on the inside that the jury's actually having lunch, so they probably haven't been deliberating as of yet. As you mentioned, some civil attorneys for the family of Botham Jean came out here. They gave a news conference in which Lee Merritt, one of these civil attorneys, told the reporters who were here that what the jury takes into that room is the value of a black man's life. So they are certainly considering this to be a verdict that has a lot of racial implications to it. During closing arguments this morning, it was interesting to watch both sides play this out. You had prosecutors who were telling the jury that this case is about what is ridiculous and what is absurd, or what is reasonable and what is absurd. Then you had the defense saying that Amber Guyger was acting in a reasonable and prudent way. Reasonable is the key word that this jury will have to define based on the circumstances in this case. And both prosecutors and defense attorneys mocked the other one's arguments by the prosecutors saying you can't just say, quote, whoops, my bad, and then go about your life. There have to be some consequences for something like this. Then if you have on the flip side of that, defense attorneys saying that there's no way Amber Guyger was walking up to that door saying, looking at this red doormat, which she says she missed, that I'm going to go kill whoever was inside there. I don't like this red doormat. I'm going to go shoot who's ever inside this apartment. So both sides are playing to that and using a little bit of absurdity to try to prove their points.
Right, and we heard them sort of a ping pong going back and forth today while they were in closing arguments. J.D., you're a seasoned reporter. Obviously, you've covered these kinds of trials, these kinds of stories for a long time. How do you anticipate sort of the next couple of hours, the next day and a half might play out? Do you think that the jury's going to come back with a verdict relatively soon? Are you all expecting that this is going to happen sometime tomorrow? Or what's sort of the tone when it comes to maybe anticipating how long that verdict will take?
Well, this is a very long trial by Dallas County standards. The jury has been sequestered, and so that can mean a couple of things. First of all, they've got a lot of evidence to go through, so there's a good chance that they're going to take their time, and we shouldn't expect a verdict very soon. But then again, this jury has been away from their families. They've been away from contact with the outside world pretty much for the last week, so they're going to want to get home. They're going to want to get this over with. So you would imagine that they're going to take an initial vote. They're probably going to have some questions. I've never been to a case of this magnitude, covered a case of this magnitude without the jury coming back with some questions about the decisions that they're making. Of course, it's impossible to know what they're going to come back with, but we wouldn't reasonably expect anything from them in the next few hours based on just the total amount of evidence and the difficult nature of this case, which prosecutors and defense attorneys both tell me they have never seen before in the criminal justice system here or anywhere else.
Yeah, so it's sort of the waiting game now. We all just wait, like you said, on pins and needles to see what happens next. And of course, what the reactions might be to whatever verdict that jury renders. I did want to talk a little bit about something that you brought up a little bit ago, though, JD, because you mentioned that one of the statements that was made earlier by the both of them, Jean Camp, the civil attorneys, was that this case is now the value of a black life. Obviously, racial undertone there to that statement. But during the actual trial, when prosecutors were talking to witnesses, presenting their case, and even the defense, did you notice, were there any real mentions of race playing a major part here?
Not that I can recall off the top of my head. It's been mostly about the rules of a police officer, the operating procedure, their code of conduct, also about the confusing layout of the apartment building they both lived in, about her actions before and after the shooting. Clearly race has been sort of a cloud over this case for the past year. A lot of civil rights groups are pointing to this as an example of police brutality or the prejudices police have against African Americans. But as far as the actual trial evidence goes, we didn't see any direct evidence or any testimony, for that matter, that brought the issue of race into this case. Right.
Clearly, we know that those are some undertones that certainly have caused communities, including here in Dallas, a lot of heartache and a lot of sort of angst with folks on both sides of that argument. All right, JD. So what happens next? You said the jury's having lunch. I'm assuming once their stomachs are full, then they'll actually start poring over the evidence and asking the questions that they need to be asking. Correct?
Right. That's right. The first job they have is to select a presiding juror. And so from that, we'll have the leader of the jury. They're the only people that are allowed, the only person who's allowed to actually talk to the bailiff, to send out questions that they want the judge to answer. And then the judge will probably call all sides inside the courtroom, read the question or the issue that they have, and then they will send back a written answer to the jury in the jury room. This jury has a lot of work to do, as we've said, and so they'll probably start going over evidence. They may take an initial vote of guilt on the two different charges, and then just go from there, decide where they stand, and then deliberate this evidence that it's definitely going to take some time before they can reach that verdict if they're split.
Okay. Hey, JD, just because we're chatting here a little bit, just out of curiosity today, we were asking earlier, during these recesses, do we know where Amber Guyger, where does she physically go? Does she stay in the courthouse? Do they kind of take her off to a side room somewhere, or how does that work?
She is still in an adjacent room to the courtroom. It's an area where obviously she can avoid the media and cameras. She can powwow with her attorneys and sit quietly. But she's not making herself accessible to the public. We've seen both of Jean's family come and go here every time there's a break. They're not speaking, though, because there's a gag order in the case. But Amber Guyger is in the back with her attorneys and waiting, as everyone else is, to find out if this jury's going to reach a decision today.
And as we know, and as you just mentioned, JD, that wait could be a long one. But here we are, day 7 of the trial, and the jury has now gone into deliberation. So we will, in fact, just wait to see what they have to say. JD, thank you very much. Anything else you want to chat about with our live streaming audience? They're watching right now. They've been watching all week long. Anything else we should let them know about?
Well, we saw Amber Guyger's family here for the first time today. We haven't seen them during this trial, and so they're here, obviously, in support of her. Also, it's interesting, if she's convicted, she is out on bail, but the judge could decide if she's convicted of murder or manslaughter to put her in jail throughout the remainder of the punishment phase, if there is one of this trial. That would be interesting. So Amber Guyger may have spent her last free night in this case if this jury comes back with a verdict today.
Okay,
and it's guilty.
Yep. All right, J.D. Miles, thank you once again. We will, of course, continue to follow you on social media and for all your updates. And we're going to have them later on throughout the day on CBS DFW, both on air and online. For right now, we want to thank everyone who has been watching the live stream coverage of this trial. Of course, keep it locked to CBS DFW. We will bring you any updates just as soon as we get them. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll chat soon.
This has been a special report from CBS 11 News.